Yeah, buddy, we're back. You're listening to All Burgundy and Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM, 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia. I'm Glen. I got George on with me tonight. And we also have Candi Waller, CEO of Bowie TV, with us as well. Hey, George, what's up, man?
It's good to be on. Good to be on. Good to be talking about some real work that is setting the foundation for the 2026 season.
Definitely, man. Let's do some house cleaning, George. Up to you.
Yes, sir. Subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and other podcast platforms. Just search All Burgundy and Gold Errrything. Hit us up on X, IG, and TikTok at ABG_Errrything, 3 R's. Also, like our All Burgundy and Gold Errrything Facebook page. And don't forget to subscribe to the All Burgundy and Gold Errrything YouTube channel. If you're in the YouTube chat, we accept super chats. Super chats help support the show, and super chats will be prioritized over all the comments. Glen.
Yo, here's the rundown. This is what we have on tap tonight. We're chatting with Bowie TV Commanders reporter Candi Waller. Will join us. She's already here, and we'll talk about day one of the Commanders OTAs. Candi, what's going on? How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. Long day, but it's a good day. Very good day.
Definitely a good day. Hey, a lot to talk about OTAs today. You were able to see parts and pieces of team and players. After being at day one of Commanders OTAs, what stood out to you the most about the team, Jayden Daniels, the coaching staff? Help us give us a rundown, get us caught up.
Definitely. I mean, I think one of the things that has been consistent across, just practices, start the season is the energy. The energy, it has been there, right? The energy has been there. What I do think is different is the intensity. At times you might say energy and intensity is the same thing. I think it's a little different this year. Like the energy is always there. The energy, the overall energy, but the intensity and the speed, the tempo seems like every year it gets a bit faster. But the intensity level, the overall just speed of the practice, is they're moving things along too to try to get in as many reps as they can. I tweeted about Terry McLaurin. One of the things that this team, just that time on task is a real thing. And boy, oh boy, wasn't it good to see Terry McLaurin out there in May. I think last year, this May, it was like a cloud. That's what I've been saying. It was a cloud. He didn't know it was going to turn into an all-out thunderstorm. Like, is Terry going to come back? What's going on? Was this, was that, But having him there, you can already tell Jayden has built a rapport, camaraderie with his assets, with his targets. You call them targets, you call them assets. I could see that, and definitely see that with he and Terry in May. And Terry just looks phenomenal. He did great. Overall, you can look at overall, yes, they're younger. Overall, yes, they're faster. What will be a question, until you get to like joint practices, is just that overall physicality, right? Because they can't tackle, they can't do certain things. So you just won't really be able to see that effectively until the preseason. I thought Javon Kinlaw looked great last year. I talked a lot about him during camp, first parts of the season, but as members of the D-line, Deatrich Wise, Dorrance Armstrong started to get hurt, you saw, that things just didn't go as planned in a lot of different areas. But I've seen that Javon Kinlaw does look great. And I think a lot of that has to do the improvements in pass rush. And you have to remember Deatrich Wise and Dorrance Armstrong aren't quite back yet. They were inside practice, but they weren't in full practice because they're still rehabbing and going through injuries. Trey Amos I did not see him at practice, Trey Amos, but I know he was in the building rehabbing. Going to the running backs real quick. They're fast. I mean, all of them are. This is not a slow group. This is not a slow team. They're fast. They've definitely added speed. We'll see what happens there and what goes on there. But I certainly saw some good things from Rashad White, from Jerome Ford, Katron Allen. I saw quite a bit of today. I'm trying to think through, going back to Terry McLaurin and just the wide receiver group, that's just going to be a storyline. That's just going to be a storyline for the whole camp. This will be a whole preseason. And returner. It was posted who was doing punt returns, and I reposted it, but then I realized when I reposted it that not everybody was included on what I reposted. Let me look because I was watching. I'm going to watch that. But even in punt returns, of course, Jalen Lane was out there. Jalen Lane, Antonio Williams, Luke McCaffrey, Ja'Cory Brooks, Traylon Burks, and Mikey Sammer still was back there. And this was something that I brought up last season, and then we didn't have to see it until Madrid, when they played the Dolphins. But nonetheless, he was back there again. And so that is something to watch. That was punt returns, but even still kick return, all that is going to be something to watch. I'm going to always bring it up as a special teamer because I remember last year Debo played that role, and Debo played that role until folks started getting hurt, and then he had to be more of an active contributor in the wide receiver piece of it, in the wide receiver room. But they're going to need somebody dynamic. Oh, my mom said she found me. Okay. Hey,
hi, Mama Waller. We got to stop and say hi to Mama Waller.
Yes. Hey, Mom.
Thank you for joining us, Mama Waller.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, I just think that return is a thing. I mean, they had 6 people back there today. So, for punt return. So, and then, using our clues, who was, and we know who the punt return, that's Jalen. We also know, Luke did it, but Luke only did it after Debo not Debo didn't get hurt, but after things had to shift when folks started getting hurt. So just keep that in mind. That's going to be a thing as this goes on. Linebacker is going to be a thing. Let's just keep it honest. Like somebody's going to end up on the practice squad or not making the roster. Same thing with pass rush. Somebody's not making. They're going to end up on the practice squad. Then it's just a numbers game at that point, right? Some of the things that I don't know, Glenn. Do we have any clips?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
The one from Nick Allegretti, not Nick Allegretti. Sorry, Sam Cosmi about Nick Allegretti.
All right, here we go.
Allegretti probably going to get that first crack. What did you see from Nick? What gives you confidence that he could do that job?
Yeah, so Nick's a really, really intelligent guy. And you got to be pretty smart to play center. I would say play guard really well, held straight play center. So he was able to do it in the 2024 season the whole year. Had full and confidence in his ability to play center at a high level.
So, of course, you're going to feel like you're there and the jug machine was going and all the things after practice. But I think what needs to be shared here at this point is that, Nick Allegretti was at center. And so this is something to be watched. But this is just like it is what it is unless he gets thoroughly beat out of his job. But Nick Allegretti was absolutely at center today. So just put that in your back pocket, put it in, your usual clues and your notes. Can you play the clip with Charles Omenihu?
Yep.
Those for guys who play.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Versatility is really, really they like that here. They like guys that can play multiple positions.
Guys who play.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Versatility is really, really they like that here. They like guys that can play multiple positions, play up and down the line. So y'all can standing up outside. You know what I mean? So I'm excited. That's a big thing that I found was going to help me. And just in my mind, my mindset is getting back to that high level of play that I was at in 23 and in 22. Last year in San Fran, and of course you can see that high level of just impact in the pass game and in the run game from different spot. So I think this defense is really, really going to show that, and it shows from day one. It's not just like Coach Law.
So that was definitely a use your clues moment, right? Like, goes back to what Coach Jones says. It's not where they line up, it's where they wind up. And Charles Omenihu was clear that versatility. They seem to like guys here. He made it clear here that can do multiple things. They can play up and down the line. If you watch that press conference in full with Charles Omenihu, he also talked about a defense that relied heavily on the defensive line. So,
before we move on, something that Sam Cosby said, you talk about Nick Algrady playing 2024, playing center. We talked about him being a smart guy. Today watching him, did he feel comfortable, look comfortable, moving off the football, which you guys see snapping the ball while he's being an OTA? Because, again, he's asked to do a lot this year because it's different. Now he has to be on the center. He's not on the shotgun. And you have Jayden's back. So they got to continue. They got to work that chemistry with Jayden and Nick. So did you see a lot of Jayden and Nick together today? A lot of under center with Algrady and Jayden?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think that it looks like Jayden is working with his like I said, working with his assets, working with his targets, and working with his teammates. It didn't look uncomfortable, right? So I know there's going to be a lot of just perfecting and continuing the time on task, and everyone getting used to that position, and even Jayden being used to under center. Is going to be different with when the pads come on and you're staring down the face of the Eagles defensive line, right, in week 1. But if they're getting those things right now, I think it looked fine today. Now I will say that the defensive line absolutely get pressure. Yes, they did, for sure. Javon Kinlaw had quite a few moments today. So
Kinlaw was playing that name or playing that nose. He was at the nose. That's okay. And which we talked about that, and I know this is just OTAs, and we haven't gotten the training camp and all that. But that is the one guy who could fit at nose because of his size and because of he can dominate. When you talk about great noses, you talk about noses like Nick Wolfork and guys like that who dominated at that nose guard position to help linebackers. Because you mentioned the linebacker core. To help the linebackers see the line and be able to move. I know they're not just staying a 3-4. They're moving different. And, Daronte said he's going to play multiple defenses, right? And so, but at the nose, I think he gives a lot of people a lot of problems.
Now, I've been starting to share this as well about the media policy because they, I think I shared this last year. But they're really being sticklers on it this year, and having been on, site with a few teams, there's a lot of stuff that we can. You ask me a question, I'm gonna answer it, to the best of my ability, or like when you just asked me about Javon. But there's definitely now things that we cannot report on. So like straight up from the media policy, because I think this is honest, to tell that the people need to know, like you can't report on information that would be a competitive disadvantage, which includes describing specific formations, personnel packages, play designs, number of reps, of course, no photo and video of players rehabbing or working off to the side. Because of the nature of social media, opposing teams, they do go and look to get information so that they can prepare. And we even knew some things were different from what they show us during the media pack, the time, right, that we can watch versus what ends up happening in game. So I anticipate there will be even more changes, right? In terms of what we can publicly share, and as well as just they're not going to show us everything either, because they probably they're probably not even going to show us a third, because competitive advantage is a real thing. And I'm going to continue to say this because I think it's important. I know from media colleagues across the league who has said anytime that, a team wanted to prepare for Washington, all they had to do was just go to the Washington media's pages, because we talk a lot. And so it's a learning process for everybody to be like, do you really need to know who's first, second, third, who's taking all the team reps? No, you don't. Honestly, when you think about it, no, why? You know what I mean? Just put the best package forward. And if it's something that's going to help the team be successful on game day, I think that's just something we should probably all just understand and recognize.
I want to be on Deluxe's thing real quick and to stay in the same topic. Tim Settles being back today. Can you talk a little bit about Tim Settles being back in Washington? And did you notice any different swagger or different feel from Tim Settles today being like, I want to call it, quote unquote, official day back? Football was in the air. I'm put it this way. When you have helmets and pads on and football in the air, did you see a different swag with Tim Settles being back in Washington?
No, I mean, not today, but that doesn't mean that I won't see something when we go back next week, you know what I mean? Or the week after that. From a line perspective, Javon Kinlaw was the one who I was just like, but an improved pass rush will help him be great. So that's what I think was happening, right? Even when I kept seeing, maybe like on the right side of the line, I'll just say the right side of the offensive line, I was seeing like, everybody's gonna have a time getting better. This is gonna be a few months of everybody getting better. And Javon Kinlaw, he definitely absolutely looks the part, but he absolutely looks faster than he did last year at this time as well. No. So not like, Tim Settle caught my eye. That doesn't mean it was a bad thing that he didn't catch my eye. Let me be clear on that too. It's not a bad thing, but just not, day one, it's kind of like just who's standing out, and Javon Kinlaw was record shop.
Gotcha. And that was against the let me ask this. The decent offensive line.
Yes, Javon Kinlaw. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll leave that. I'll ask that question later.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it's not that Tim Settle doesn't, it's just day one of OTAs. Mm-hmm. Once you get it, they're gonna be fine.
They're gonna be fine. Go ahead, George. You got a question for Candi?
Yeah, I do, because there was a lot of talk about Sonny Styles on my timeline, and even a few videos that he is like, the way people were talking about him, that he's that physically imposing that it's like a modern day RoboCop out there. Tell me about Sonny Styles and watching him today, and just what did you see, and was he as physically impressive as what people were talking about?
I mean, the performance he put on at the combine wasn't a fluke. It wasn't a fluke, and I remember seeing him earlier that day, and I might have posted about it that way back in the combine, seeing him earlier the day before drills. And I was like, oh my God, he looks like an Avenger. Like, what world? And I mean, yes, it's real. It is real. It is the 1000% the truth. And yeah. And so it's just, and you got, youth, speed, box check. How it comes out in scheme and physicality is what we won't know, right? Until it's time to really show up, in August against another team. So it will be interesting to see how teams plan for him in the linebacker core overall, because they all, it's, Frankie looks to be bigger. He looks bigger than he did to me. I mean, when he came back last year, he looked kind of big, but Frankie, it's Frankie. You got Leo, you have Sonny, you have Jordan, you got Kate. So it's like, even as a group, they look different, right? And so, and then that speed and everything is there. So 1000%, Sonny Styles is as advertised, no doubt about it.
And one of the other questions I have, I loved what you were talking about with the returners and just how many people were back there, because Dan Quinn has talked about it, but we didn't see it as much last year. And I think that's one of the reasons they struggled, how important competition is. My guess is that through training camp and probably maybe even into preseason, we're going to see multiple people. We're going to see a lot of different people returning kicks to figure this out, to challenge Luke, to challenge, whoever it's going to be back there. Is that the feeling you're getting? And I have to ask this because Wole's not here and he'll get mad if we ask it while he's here. Did you get a look at the two kickers at all? Was there anything with them that you saw?
Drew Stevens made all his kicks. Jake Moody did not. I mean, Drew Stevens was 6 out of 6, and Jake Moody was 5 out of 6. It wasn't like, but
Okay.
I mean, but Drew 6 for 6, 5 for 6. Drew made all his kicks. I mean, that's fact. And so, like, I mean, that's what happened today. OTA's day 1. So we'll see how this thing continues to go on. Now, going back to the returners, I mean, I'm going to go back to what I said, which was a clue. Debo was the kickoff returner, straight up. Until folks
he did a heck of a job early on.
And then look, right. And that's why I keep saying, well, why does everybody think Luke is returning kicks? He didn't have the job last year until folks started getting hurt.
I'm gonna say I don't think Luke will have a job this year, but that's a whole different conversation for later on down the road.
This is going to be interesting. Wide receivers, okay. We really gotta look. This is going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be interesting for the draft classes, 2024 and 2025. Maybe only one person from 2025. You all can use your clues and figure out who that one person is. But for 2024, this is going to be a very interesting roster when it gets there. Roster cut, right? Because we're talking about there's a few position groups, right? Linebacker, right? Tight end, wide receiver, pass rush, where some of the draft picks, I don't know how you're making a roster. Maybe you'll be practice squad, but I don't know how you're gonna make it. And it is I did tweet a video of the wide receiver groups just to say a quick look at the wide receiver groups. So the wide receiver group, day 1 of OTAs, just so everybody can see who's in that group, right? And yeah, I mean, Luke wasn't the number 1 kick returner last year. That's why I'm like, why everybody think he's going to do kicks? He only did kicks because of the injuries.
Mm-hmm. So Candi, who was in control of the defense when they was on the defense? Who was the guy that stood out the most besides Kinlaw that you could tell was in control of the defense?
I'm gonna say use your clues. When I asked who was the mic, you can use your clues. Who's the mic? And whoever they, you know what I'm saying? I hope you understand what I'm saying. So everybody get what I'm saying? I was asking who's the mic, and I'm not asking that question anymore. So
got you. That's why we worded it the way I worded it.
And I do want to say I'm glad that question got answered, because that is something that is competitive advantage. Mm-hmm. Other teams, I mean, they're going to eventually know right, but that is something, because then they start to clue in on that individual and understand their movements. Now, here's something else I learned. Multiple people can play that role. Mm-hmm. I did learn that, but in terms of OTAs today, the question's already been answered based on their draft picks.
Yeah, it is. One thing you talked about weight too, right? Jayden looked noticeably different today. He looked like he put some weight on, some muscle on. He looked a little thicker and bigger. Mm-hmm. Was the ball and everything still sailing like it was supposed to?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I shared with Liam Griffin from the Washington Times. I said, you want to know who I've watched the least today? He's like, who? I said, Jayden Daniels. And he just bust out laughing because he's on JD5 time right now. He is on JD5 time. It's real. It is real. Mm-hmm. He's on JD5 time. I even had to laugh at myself. Like, I was recording some of the secondary and the linebackers, they were on one side because we were in the bubble. Jayden kind of like got my shot. I was like, Lord, I'm not trying to get you because we all know what you on. And so here's what I'm doing. JD5 is absolutely on JD5 time, you all. No doubt about it. Don't doubt it. Don't question it. He is. And I know he's going to implement all the things he's learned from the leaders that have been around him in other years, and those who he has that he continues to learn and get mentorship from. And of course, his coaches. Where my eyes are on the support staff that he needs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? What does the relationship, and that's why I mentioned early on, hey, I can see he's been getting with his assets, he's been getting with his targets. Okay, this looks familiar, this feels familiar, so I can tell they've been working together. But him in the offensive line being under center more, it'll be interesting as time goes on to see when things really turn up, with the scheme part of it. That's what I'm going to see. I really want to see. But again, his supporting cast, are people holding on to the football, yards after catch? Those are all the things that I'm going to be looking for, because JD5 is on JD5. I ain't even calling him JD no more. JD5 might be his, his alter ego name. We're gonna find another name for him. I don't know. But he's there. Absolutely 100% locked in.
I heard some of the players were talking about how quickly he's picked up this offense, and was it one player was saying that he's the way he was working today, it felt like he was the godfather of the offense, which I just found amusing. But it is kind of reminds me of 2 years ago when he was a rookie, and he was just ready to absorb everything, and it felt like he was ahead of the game on Cliff Kingsbury's offense, on the different things, and he hit the ground, and as a result, he hit the ground running.
I mean, he watches film. He's a film watcher. He's a studier. He picks up things very quickly. I think that was one of the things that we talked about last year. It's like he has a photographic memory. He can remember things. If you could watch him something, see something, hear something, and then he could do it. I mean, he's gifted. He is a gift for sure. And as long as he continues to build on that craft and stay in the film room and in the study room, because everybody knows these defenses change, right? We saying all these things here, but how is that going to work in week 1, and then again in week 2, and then again in week 3, right? We saw how, even as gifted as he is, teams were ready for him last year. They were ready because they knew that guy is dangerous. If you let him get loose, we're screwed. So they were ready for him. So now they got to get ready again, right? But what does that look like, though, in real life, for sure, as he's preparing for other teams?
Back to George's question, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised that he was ahead of the game offensively today. You got to realize, too, him and David Blough have a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
They have a good relationship. So I'm sure they have spent a lot of time together this offseason, getting to understand things, beginning to move things around, get to know what Jayden's comfortable with. Remember, he was his quarterback coach, right? Yeah. So he knows Jayden's strengths and weaknesses. So now, when you, as an offensive coordinator, when you design this offense, you're designing it with this guy JD5 in mind, right? I'm sure he's already, if he's like most coaches, he's already had this bad boy probably designed with JD5, not knowing that he was going to get the head coaching job, but had designed some things or set some things in place. And if you listen to some people from last year, Blough was one of those guys who really talked in meetings. He really shared his opinion, and Cliff, they listened to him because he was that guy. And look how the quarterbacks they had last year were able to progress. So Jayden to me is a good. He's going to be ahead, and you want to see him ahead. Now, can everybody else catch up to where he's at, and can he let them catch up? The running backs, the offensive line, the wide receivers. I know it's just OTAs, and next week, in a week and a half from now, is mini training camp. But you want to see guys like De'Ami Brown stand up, your Van Jefferson stand up. You want to see that receiver core, because guess what? That receiving core is what the core that we're going to talk about a lot, and they got to get and they're gonna have to get balls. And we know with a healthy Jayden Daniels, if you go back to 2024, one thing that a healthy Jayden Daniels did do, he spread the football around. That was something that he did that helped this team. He spread the ball around because he trusted the guys that he spread the ball to, whether it was Noah Brown, whether it was whether it was De'Ami, whether it was Amade Zacchaeus, all those guys, Zach Ertz, those guys caught ball. He trusted those guys. And so he has to continue to build this trust with these group of receivers. and then we all know they might be adding one or two. But again, this group that we have right now, he got to be able to trust them, and they got to be able to catch the football.
And that's exactly why, Glenn, I was saying I need to see what his support staff hitting on, right? Yards after, how many yards you could get after the catch. That's going to come down the line. But are you able to hold? Are you even able to hold on to the football, right? Yards after the catch. As time goes on, who's missing blocks? Is anybody missing blocks? Like, those are the things that are going to help him be better and excel and really be who he is. Right. But we also know, going back to the point you just made, Glenn, is that, listen, here's the reality. Jayden Daniels was the reason why that team was successful as they were in 2024, period. Correct. We have not seen a rookie season from a quarterback like that. We've not seen it. Right. We've just not. It's the truth. It's in the history books. And they fed off of his energy. Teams typically feed off the energy from the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Right. And so once he got hot, once he got lit in that week 3 Cincinnati game, and if you go back and watch the season of quarterback from that season, Joe Burrow said it wasn't that they lost, it was that Jayden refused to lose the game. That's what he said. Jayden refused. He a goon. He's different. He hates losing. Most of them do. All of them do. They hate it. Like loathe it. It's hard. So I know last year was probably just a lot for them, but then it becomes you follow the leader. That energy cranks up, it goes high, and so you want to be great because he is great, and he's just so much such that he put himself in some spots last year to try to save the team and put the team on his back. So his success is the Commanders' success, but you can't have turnovers, right? So he's got to do his share of taking care of the football as well, but you can't have fumbles, right? You got to be able to still, somebody, you take a hit, you got to be able to keep rolling. The defense got to be able to get him the ball back so they can run the scoreboard up, because we saw what this looked like when teams were prepared. And we also know what it was like in week 2, as early as week 2, when it said, hey, their defensive coordinator over there, Green Bay, they were very well prepared. It seemed like they knew everything we were doing. Mm-hmm. That can't happen again. Because also, to Glenn's point, yes, David Blough is new to the role, but he is not new to that building. This is their 3rd year together. So they got a rapport, and so that's where sometimes even maybe some of the questions or some of the link, it's like, this isn't new. They're not new. They know one another very well.
Another player that flashed all over my timeline was Chigakonkwo, that he had a very good day. Your thoughts on him and the other tight ends from what you could see? I didn't really see too much from them, but that was just because I saw a lot of other things, right? Okay. But it wasn't like they were bad. Let me be clear on that. It wasn't that, right? Like, I'm watching this JD5 Terry thing. Just, I watched the JD5 Traylon Burks moment, and I'm like, now y'all gonna give me my flowers. You can't get over that. No, I'm not getting over that ever. And so, stuff like that. You saw a lot of Rashad White, right? So Jerome Ford, Katron Allen ran past me several times. And I'm just like, man, okay. The speed is there. Did they get younger? Yep. Can you tell? Yep. Did they get faster? Yep. Mm-hmm. So this will be very interesting. And I just didn't focus on the tight ends, if that makes sense, right? I just wasn't focused there. Because you got to think, going back to the comments I was making about the defensive line, the play still got to go forward. But in real life, the play would have been over because you've been sacked. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm talking about, the supporting staff. What's going on over here,
Let's take some questions from the chat real quick. Doug's had a question, Candy, for you. Did anyone talk to Jayden about the use of VR this offseason to help him
good question,
get ahead of the game?
You know what? This goes back to I kind of tuned out on Jayden's press conference. I did, because I went to go see what Diami was doing, and I went to go watch Van Jefferson. He was at the Jug Machine, and so I would have to go back and listen to that. And this is me. Y'all know I'm always gonna be honest and be honest about you all about what I'm doing, so you can feel like you're there. If Jayden was doing it before, he's gonna still do it. Let me also say that, based on what I know about, he's not gonna stop doing it. If anything, he's gonna be doing even more to enhance his abilities and all of that. So that was something that it was, known that he does and enjoyed doing, and was one of his many learning tools. So I would expect that he still does it. But I stood there for maybe a couple of questions. So I think, it's part of who he is. It's what he does. One of his learning tools.
Now, I want to share this. That VR program is real. I had an opportunity to use the VR program at a coaching clinic, and to be able to be in that simulation and what you put into it. That thing is legit, and does help you a lot. So I want to say, that is something that is revolutionary.
Yeah.
Not only for Jayden, but if you're a linebacker, all right. I don't know if the linebackers you use it, but for linebackers, it is also a revolutionary as well. I had opportunity to use one of those. But let's get to another question that we had here. Paul had a question. Paul's question is, I really think we don't need it to bring anyone in. Burks was a former number 1 pick, so he has a talent. Just went to a bad organization with a bad quarterback play. Do you agree? Let me ask both of y'all. Do y'all agree?
I smiled because there was one particular part of the practice. Lake Lewis and I looked at each other and laughed, and I was like, "Say, man, Traylon gonna make this roster. He gonna make this roster in May." It's like, hey, he's gonna remind everybody that was the first round pick. Don't forget, he had a very good day. He did.
But and that's key though, right there, because people, we talk about this wide receiver room, and we'll talk about this wide receiver room all the way up until they make the 53-man cuts, right? Mm-hmm. I think it'll be a telltale. I think, or until the third preseason game, because if you're playing in that third preseason game, you're trying to make this football team, right?
As the wide receiving room turns, that's what it's going to be all
off. As the wide receiver turn room, because we as fans and as reporters last year, like, Traylon Burke is like, he's that dude. Like he's found a new home. And you said something about making his team. I don't think he has to do much to make this football team. In my opinion, right?
Just
I think
consistent. Just stay consistent. What are you doing?
Because again, you don't have a Noah Brown, which good. So long as he stays healthy, I think he'll make this team. But then you have to worry about the other guys that will fit in. We already know Antonio Williams is already going to make this team. So now you're talking about the guys like Van Jefferson, Diami Brown, which I think bring Diami back. He kind of say Diami got a leg up on bring his team, but then you got the other guys who are able to play special teams. So again, this is going to be a telltale sign here as we get into October, as we get into late June, July, and even into August. Like, who's fighting for their life in this position, and how many wide receivers do they want to carry?
100%. Again, and all excellent points. Use your clues. Go back to what I shared about who all was catching returns. That is a very important point, because that's a surefire way to make the roster, right? And so that was a lot of names from the wide receiver core, right? There was at least 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
4. Antonio, Luke, Jaylen, and Traylon. I mentioned Mikey. I feel like I'm missing something. It was like 6.
And Ja'Cory Brooks, you mentioned him too.
Ja'Cory Brooks.
Right. So you got like 5 receivers back there, right? And Mikey, you know what I mean? But Mikey was doing it last year. Remember, I told everybody that. Yeah. And so when he had to go out there because Jaylen got hurt in the Madrid game, everybody remembers what happened there.
Yeah.
Remember?
And I want to respond to Paul's point and just remind ourselves of something. We all like Traylon Burks, and we all think he can be productive, and we all know he's talented. But let's remember something. He was on the street for a while. Nobody was picking him up. We signed him to the practice squad. I mean, he got elevated. And as much as we like him, and as much as I agree with what Candi was saying about he's going to definitely make this team, I think absolutely right. We still are putting a lot on him if you're asking him to be the number 2 receiver or the kick returner or both. So Paul, I do think we need another wide receiver. I'm just worried about who it's going to be, because there's certain people that we've talked about ad infinitum that I don't want here.
But
I don't want to throw shade on Burks and say I don't think he's going to produce. I think he's definitely going to produce. And to me, that's going to be a big W for Adam, picking him up and getting him in here and keeping him. And I just want to point that out, but I don't think that precludes us getting another wide receiver, and it shouldn't. Because of what another commenter said, which is something I totally agree with, which is you can't count on Lane and McCaffrey. You can't. And you know, this wide receiver room, as you rightly say, is going to be the big subject, because right now, today, it's Terry and who? That's what it is. You can't
real
trust
quick, George.
You cannot count on any of these.
Good night, Mama Waller.
Good night, Mama Waller.
Good night, Mama Waller. Thank you for watching, and thank you for supporting.
Yep. Go ahead, George. I just had to say, make sure we.
No, and Paul, you're also right about that. That's why I'm a fan of Treylon Burks, but it's also why I would have drafted a different receiver in round 3 than the one we drafted.
Now, Diami does look like he got bigger.
This receiving core.
He's not Treylon Burks big.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of this receiving core has got to show me something before I'm buying them now. Because I'm with you. JD5's on JD5 time, and I think Terry McLaurin is going to be back to his best.
But you know what? One thing, George, is this: is that you got guys who sometimes one man's trash is another man's treasure, and sometimes when people get that second chance, they take full advantage of it. And I think Treylon Burks has taken, as of right now, from what we saw. I can't talk to the future, but what we've seen, he's taken full advantage of his second opportunity.
No question. I mean, again, that catch. And I know it's crazy to go on about one catch, but that catch that he made last year, the one-handed one, reaching back in the end zone, seriously, I mean, we haven't had maybe, but I'm trying to think of how many receivers we had that ever could have made a catch like that. And it isn't many, that's for sure. And so, I mean, again, I'm a fan, but this notion that we don't need another receiver, which Paul was advancing, is one I cannot agree with right now.
But here's the question, though, George. We wait. If you need another receiver, they are all except for one, right? Who everybody wants are available. They haven't pulled the trigger on none. So if you need,
true.
So the telltale sign is this: if you need another receiver, and the organization's telling me, oh, everybody said they need another receiver, why haven't they pulled the trigger on all those other receivers that are out there? We mentioned his name earlier. Deebo Samuels could have pulled the trigger on him, could get him for less. We talked about Stephon Diggs. His name is out there. Could have pulled the trigger on him. Guess what? That means to me, this organization, either they're not working on numbers, or they don't want him here, or they're waiting for the big fish. Or they're waiting for the big, and we all know who the big fish is that they might be waiting for. So
that's not the big fish I'm waiting for. But
that's not the big fish you're waiting for, but that's the big fish that the guy who runs this organization, the GM of the organization.
And I will say, they've drafted 3 receivers. So somebody
right,
rise to the top, because you know, and I was talking about this earlier. You know, when you look at, there's certain questions that should not still be asked now, in my opinion.
Correct.
Right? You know, and this is one, because for how long now has it been Terry McLaurin and everybody else?
Yeah.
And then you got to wait to see who rises to the top. Now, last year, we never saw it all come to fruition as it could have, because of all the mess that was going on between Terry and the organization. We know the contract, I'll say. But it's been, now you're going into another season with that conversation. And you know, they say, okay, you say they don't do 2, 3, 4 wide receivers. Okay, but it's still Terry and who? right? So that's one thing. That's it's like, okay, because you got 3 wide receivers now. So they should all be making the roster, right? And then other people, I mean, I'm just saying that, right? Because if the answer is no, then that's another problem in conversation. But then you got, even for the tight end group, why wasn't there just another person available to take Zach Ertz's place? Why was there still a question there? You got to bring in free agent. All right, but I don't know if that's a good question. Look at all the movement and people that had to come in from a pass rush, right? A linebacker perspective. I'm like, the elephant in the room soon, at least for me, is going to be, once we get into these preseasons, all of the draft picks should be coming. Somebody, all of them.
Should be bubbling up.
Now, here's the thing. That's highly unlikely. I already know this, right?
Yeah.
So don't go out saying Candi has predicted that all of the draft picks. What I'm saying is they better. Because if not, you got a different challenge on your hands, because it's been a lot of free agents and more draft. I mean, you got 3. You've drafted 1 in every, so they should be shoo-ins, but let's just be honest, they're not. Not all.
They're not.
Not all of them.
Calling anyone out. So not all of them. That's a challenge for me, you all. Or maybe your first draft, you just, maybe things you change over time or whichever. I'll find a more eloquent way to say that later on. But it's just there's some things that people that aren't bubbling to the top that would draft.
Some things don't fit. I mean, let's be honest. When you get a new staff and you get a new coordinator, there's some people who just don't fit in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah.
Of what you're asking that receiver to do.
Right.
When Cliff Kingsbury was here, Cliff Kingsbury wanted receivers that could block down the field. He wanted receivers that can block, and that's why Jahan Dotson was no longer a member of the Washington Commanders, because Jahan Dotson couldn't block down the field. So again, we got to figure out what David Blough is asking his receivers to do, and what he wants his receivers to do, and therefore we can start seeing where people play out at based off what the offensive coordinator wants his players to do, just like defense, right? We talked about people being versatile. Well, does Blough want his receivers to be versatile on offense, because he wants them to be able to play in different positions? You play inside, play the slot, play the outside, go in the backfield, become the H-back, motion across. And I ain't even been at OTA, but again, different things that he may looking for in his offense receiver based off what he drafted. Look at Antonio Williams. That's what he did at Clemson.
He did. 100%.
He played everywhere that wherever Clemson wanted him to play, he was willing to play. So that lets me know this is the type of guy that David Blough and his offense are looking for. And when you look at the free agents, do any of those guys match up to that?
That's what I'm saying. And we have enough. This goes back to use your clues. We have enough intel on how this, whether we realize it or not, we have enough intel and data on how, this is me in my school that talking about data and stuff, but we do have enough information collected to know how this organization thinks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And the objective is always to get better, right? Which I believe they have. But there's still some questions that we shouldn't still be asking. True. Because at the end of the day, if you brought Diami back, that's going to make me believe you probably should have never let him go. But that's all right. Maybe you thought that worked okay. Hey, you tried it out, didn't work, bring him on back. That's what's going to start making me think. But, hey, he's back. And that's great. But, but that means you didn't replace him either. Right?
Right.
So it's and they working it out. They're working through the kinks. But But some of in my mind, some of the philosophies and the principles that they have about what you want in your any of your position groups, you should be a bit more locked in on that in year 3.
It should be.
No, quite well, and it goes back to what you said. They've drafted 3 receivers. They've drafted a few linebackers too.
That's what I'm saying.
And they had to go back and draft another one at 7.
Well, because
they had to draft another one at 7 because
year
of their
2
situation. So yeah,
year 2 sets you back. All right,
terrible.
Can we be honest? Year 1 was an anomaly. Year 1 was an anomaly because it got you to the NFC Championship, and it kind of was a falsehood because you thought you was knocking on the door, right? But
Well, year one led us to make decisions that we wouldn't. That I think AP would not have made otherwise. That
correct.
Has maybe complicated things.
Correct, because again, NFC Championship, you think you one play from the door, and some people lingered longer than needed to be. Some people you let go that shouldn't have went anywhere. You was trusting some things, and so now you have all these 1 year, 2 year contracts, and you have to redevelop a team again. This is a fresh team. 75 to 85% of this roster was turned over. Let's be honest. They turned over. So now you have a fresh team, and Dan Quinn has to do his big boy job, him and his coaching staff, to gel these guys together to make an efficient football team. This is not the team from 2024. It's definitely not the team from 2025. This is a different team, but with some of the same pieces. And how do this team gel together and become better with what they have in place? And that's the question with this team and OTAs and everything else. Candi, I had a question for you about the offensive line. I know we talked about receivers for a while, but name one name we haven't brought up today. It has been a big name that we talked about a lot all through the offseason, and that's Brandon Coleman. Brandon Coleman, with offensive line. How did he look today?
He was outside. He was there. He didn't look bad. Nobody looked bad, but no one looks bad at all. Not today. No one looked bad today.
Let me ask you this way. Did he look comfortable for where he was at?
Yeah, for sure. He does.
Okay.
Absolutely. 100%. Nobody looked out of play. It wasn't that. What I will say this, and I've said this, but this isn't about Brandon per se, but I will say the couple of reps I saw at times, the right side of the line had a hard time with the defensive line.
That's because this defensive line's been bolstered a lot, and they got some tough guys. It looks like some dogs out there.
Yep. And so I will be paying close attention. I'm gonna pay close attention to everything, but I'm gonna be paying close attention to what those matchups are, more so that I can, and I'll figure out how to say it, you guys, of course, because again, that's why I went ahead and made sure I pulled that clip from Charles Omenihu's presser where he was like, they seem to like versatility here. They like guys that do multiple things. And he's like, Charles Omenihu, speaking for himself, right? I could play all up and down the line. So it's going to change because I saw it change today. A person I have not brought up, and speaking of I know you asked me about Brandon Coleman. He did look fine, but it wasn't like I noticed the thing I just brought up to you all, and I'm going to bring this up because I think this is important. Drake Jackson came into my purview quite a bit.
Okay.
And so we talk about along the lines of a Traylon Burke, somebody who got picked up, someone who was injured, they nursed him back to health, and did all this, right? And now they're giving him a chance. Competition. See what he can do. Make the roster, depth piece, what have you. He definitely made some plays today.
Another question for you, Candi, on this line. Were the Ball Hawks out today?
There was like one play, somebody tried to get Traylon. They tried to get Traylon. He wouldn't let it happen, though. He's tough. Traylon Burke is tough, even in practice one and no pads on. He going to have to fight him for the football. So, but there was a lot of activity in the secondary. Let me say that, right? Because, Mikey is still going to get active. And then you got Nick Cross, Will Harris, right? I want to see a bit more, though. Let me give this some time. But, I think it was like one play. I think it was a fumble, though. So it wasn't like, in terms of ball hawk play. That's the thing, right? See, that was the other thing. Guy, like you go back to the running backs, these are guys that don't fumble. Remember that was supposed to be like a thing, like they hold on to the football. It's supposed to be one of the things with Katron Allen and stuff like that, even with Chig, things like that. So this is going to be interesting, because you got to toughen up for sure. And that's part of the physicality piece of it that I want to see on offense while Jayden is protected. by the offensive line. Because like I said, there's some of those plays where I'm like, well, that in real life, that'd have been over. That's a fact. But we're gonna play along because it's OTAs. but I think but I want to say something about that, right? Because you all have even heard me say this year I'm going to be critical. I said that I'm going to be critical, and the reason why is not to be like I'm not no Debbie Downer. If it's something positive, I'm absolutely going to say it. But everybody got duped last year to a degree. You know what I mean? It wasn't until it was just riding high. Okay, you got this piece, that piece. Yes, injuries played a part, but that wasn't the full story. Right? It really wasn't, in my opinion. There was, from the coordinators to some of the actual player execution, there were challenges there. So I'm really in the mood of, hey, when I see something, I'm going to say something like, if it comes off shady, it probably is, because I'm like, I don't know, because you did drop that football on May 27th, but
right.
I started bringing up old stuff, because it's just like when Matt Gay was missing field goals last year. We are saw it all summer. So if I say, hey, Drew made all his kicks, Jake Moody missed one. That's a fact. So I don't know. Put the best person out there. Do something, or stash Drew away on the practice squad. Do something, because
dude's kicking that football 60 yarders and he's kicking that ball.
That's the best person. Who won? Who beat? Like who made the process?
And Deluxe had a question. I've been thinking about a way to ask about the safety. So here we go. Safety.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta see a little bit more. And this was, some of these plays are made so the offense can win. And I'm like, true.
It's barely 7-on-7. Come on, let's go.
But in 11-11, they were just winning. Offense was doing. That's why I said I can see that Jayden has been time on task with his targets. They were a bit advanced. Again, goes back to also though the relationship with he and Coach Blough.
Correct.
And that time on task, when you see players getting together to work out in the off season and spending time and doing all that, that is real. That is real time on task and comfortability. It was actually amazing. I mean, did I tell y'all this already? I saw after one play, it was funny to me, but it was real. It was an incredible play, Terry. And I mean, we were kind of like looking, and I was just like, that is amazing. Good grief, they missed Terry last year. They missed him. And when Terry came over to the sideline, Adam Peters ran over there and hugged him. And I said, Adam just did what we all wanted to do. Everybody probably wanted to go over there and hug Terry after that. But I mean, it was incredible. But it's just, those are the moments that you're like, hey man, that this can work because we've seen it work. We've seen it in 2024, but what happened here? Did you get too high and mighty? Right. And that I just want to keep them low. Even when you should be high, stay low, because they got a good dose of humble pie in the NFC Championship, and they got a whole lot of it last season. And so
they ever.
Yeah. So just
they got the whole bakery last year. They got the whole humble bakery, it felt like.
So he was under center. So that's part of the here's how I answer this. That's part of the competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. Here's what I'll say. They said he was going to be under center.
Leave it like that. Yep.
That's what they said. And so
Candi, you've been around this team for several years. You've been around this team for 10 years. I think we met about 10 years now since we met each other at the. So you've seen this team.
It's almost 10 years. You right, Glen? Y'all know that. Fun fact: I met Glen in them hot Richmond training camp when I was going in there under Seawall Sports and Entertainment. Glen would be out there.
Yeah. So So 10 years now. Is this one of the fastest teams?
Yes.
And strongest teams that you've seen over the last 10 years?
For sure. That's yes. I mean, and hey, younger, check, faster, check, physicality, we got to see that comes with joint practice, preseason games, because that's just it. Even in we'll see it in joint practice. We'll see it.
Right. And the last question I got for you, competitive nature. How competitive was today?
It was very competitive. That's what I said. The intensity, for sure. That's why I was like, this is intense. And sometimes, if I feel like, do y'all have to practice this hard? Then I'm the problem, right? Because now I'm getting worried, like, a mom or an auntie or a cousin, like, oh, this somebody gonna get hurt. Oh, I can't watch this. It's just May. But no, that's how they rolling.
I heard reports that Bobby Ingram came out the other day and said, yo, DBs, y'all not catching. Y'all not. Yeah, we catching on you all day. I mean, just hear coaches being competitive with players and quick.
Oh, well, somebody said that he said that. I mean, it would be true. I mean, I was there.
Yes, somebody said he said that. No, it wasn't you. It was somebody who said that.
I ain't say he said that, but what I will say is that's what I was trying to get to. Y'all was asking about this. I was like, I gotta see what's going on over there. I gotta wait. Because they didn't, and that was my point. If I can tell Jayden has been spending time with his assets and his targets, because and like I said, the offense is supposed to win 9-11 and 11. 9-11 and 11. They just winning, and so yes, if he said that, you already said it, it would be true.
George, you got anything for Candi before we let her go tonight? You ain't want to.
No, nothing else, because we've covered everything I wanted to cover. Honestly, there is one more question Deluxe just asked that I want Candi to answer. But I just want to thank her for everything she's done and continues to do reporting on this team, because she's one of the best out there, if not the best.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm trying to, I remind everybody, like, you got to answer to a lot of people, and so I want to do what's right by the fan base, but I got rules I got to follow, and then you also build relationships, so you just got to be careful all around. And Blough's offense, I mean, David Blough, they ready, so they better go watch the film. They better go see, because I said, well, by the time I get back next Tuesday, it was a few people. I'm not gonna say their names, but there was a few people on defense that were on the a couple that were on the roster last year, maybe one or two that was not, that I'm like, when I come back on Tuesday, I need to see something else. I need to see something.
Okay. That says it all right there for me. Then
for me, this is surprising, because usually defense is ahead of the offense.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point.
I said defense is, as a defensive coach, defense day one, usually defense is ahead of the offense.
But if JD5 is on that type of time, like what Candy's talking about.
But again, the physicality could be there. You can't touch them.
That's right.
You can't touch them. And then we all know, if you ever coach for offense, always cheats anyway. Let's be honest. some of those that are still completed wouldn't be completed on Sunday. And that clock is real. That 2 to 3 second clock that you got to get the ball out, that's a real clock.
That's
now,
a real clock.
People on the offense lose track of time when you don't have pads and stuff on. I just leave it like that.
Yeah, the play is going on. Just end it. And that's one of the things that I to that point, Glenn, I'm probably, if it was a sack, it was a sack. And then I'm gonna start being like, well, how are I mean, and that could be an offline question or a public question where it's like, but how do you learn from that moment? Truly, if it's a sack, it's a sack. If you got through, you got through.
But you want to, but see, that's what stuff like that. That's where it's a twofold. I answer that one for you. It's a twofold thing, because you want to make sure the receivers run the right route, so you want everything to play out. True. You want to make sure Jayden makes his route right read, and then when you watch film, you get on the offensive lineman who messed up because he missed his assignment. And so now you wanted to make sure the other people can still run out their assignment, even though the offensive lineman screwed up. Yeah, so that's why I let it go. Like,
I love that, because see, I'm looking for the offensive lineman. You saw where I was going with that. You got to protect the QB, point blank period, because I don't think anyone, even though we all know Jayden can run, You know, it was all fun and games in 2024. Now everybody's holding their breath every time he takes off. So, you know, he's got to be able to stay in the pocket, but also get the ball out, like he was saying. This is going to be very interesting. And I mean, I can't rush to get to these joint practices, but man, I tell you, I cannot wait. I also cannot wait for mandatory minicamp.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's when I'm still going to be really asking, you know, really trying to figure this thing out. As they get ready for training camp, and to have that month off, then get ready for training camp. But media is back out there on June 2nd, June the 9th, and then for practice. And then like the 10th and the 11th, we interview the offensive coaches and then the defensive coaches. And then mandatory minicamp is June 16th through the 18th. Mm-hmm. So I got a little bit of time. I got 2 more practices to really watch for the mandatory minicamp, and we get to see over here.
Get to see the young quarterback as well. So, hey, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank y'all for listening to All Burgundy Gold, everything powered by the Urban Sports Scene and Fox Sports Radio 1340 AM, 96.9 FM Hopewell, Virginia. Want to thank again Bowie TV's own Candi Waller. Candi, let everyone know where they can hit you up on social media. And also, ladies and gentlemen, I know we are Commander fans here, but there's a new show out called The Ravens Verdict that you can check that out as well with Candi Waller and Darrell Owens. And so check that out. I know we're not Raven fans over here, but it's all DMV. Yeah, you know. If you like me, I'm rooting for I-95, 495, 295 Super Bowl. So.
Wouldn't that be lovely? Listen, and I did have a Commanders fan reach out to me. It was like, can I ask you a question? Are you covering the Ravens now? Are you still going to be on the Commanders beat? I was like, listen, Commanders is home. It is what it is. And I've had those conversations because others that thought I was leaving. I'm not. I'm just doing both. But Commanders is home. I will be spending still all of my time there. And when I can go, we'll figure all that out later, one day at a time. But Commanders is home, y'all. Y'all stuck with me over here. And but hey, tell them if you have any Ravens flock, family, and friends, tell them they're gonna get ready to use their clues over there too. I don't know. Now we gotta I got time to think about how I'm gonna handle joint practice. You know, gotta be objective. That's gonna be lit. But anyway, and they better not cancel it. I've been putting my buzz in everybody's ear. Don't cancel this one.
If it's up there, they won't. I think wasn't the whole story last year is the Ravens weren't happy with the Washington facility and that's why they canceled.
Well, it was in the same week as the game, and the Commanders had played Monday night. The Ravens had played that Saturday and traveled to Dallas. So they got a full week. And it's at your house, which is nicer.
It is nice. Owen Mills is nicer.
It's much nicer. All the bells and whistles, it's all there. But they got a full week, so there should not be a cancellation. And coaches and people that got a lot to prove on all sides and all fronts.
Yes.
But you all, Bowie TV, please subscribe to Bowie TV on YouTube. You can follow Bowie TV on all platforms of Bowie TV Sports. You can find me. You can Google me, Candi Waller, in the words of Coach Prime. I ain't hard to find. But you can also find me on X at Sewall SE. If you are in Prince George's County, Maryland, and have not cut your cable, you can find Bowie TV on Comcast channels 190 and 1097.
You're muted, Glenn.
Yeah, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, appreciate y'all. Thanks for rocking with us, and we are out. Deuces.